Her Bak Egyptian Initiate. This is the second part, Ba and Ka. Introduction to the 7 days of Ba and Ka. The pharaonic texts, which speak of the material given in the 7 days of Ba and Ka, are always enigmatical. The ancient Egyptians considered Ba and Ka inseparable from their corresponding states in the universe, or rather, these states which appear separated in man and the universe were regarded as one. The subject is at the beginning and the end of the Egyptian myth. Originally, there was one single myth. Its apparent distortion in the course of time has led to the belief that a number of different myths are involved, while in fact it is a matter of the successive development of a sole singular theme and its progressive adaptation to the historical periods of the land of the pharaohs, as well as to the consciousness of its people. Apart from the fundamental theogonies, the myth is presented in a variety of aspects, sometimes through episodes of sojourns in the Duat, describing the transformations of the various elements of, quote, being, unquote. Sometimes by stories or legends presenting one of these elements in its particular aspect, sometimes by tableau which determines some mutual connections. But the enigmatic character of the so-called, quote, coffin texts, unquote, as well as the strange symbolic forms which illustrate them, often pose an apparently insurmountable obstacle to the present-day student. The aim of this mysterious presentation was to awaken the intuitive understanding of men educated to this level of thinking, revealing to the profane only the apparent meaning of the texts and ritual gestures. Deciphering their initiatic meaning demands a knowledge of pharaonic science with regard to the philosophical value of the letters, as well as to the analogies existing between the principal forms of the animal kingdom, the various organs and occult centres of the human body, and the different subtle states that correspond to them. Here we have the indispensable foundation for an exact interpretation of Ba and Ka. Our aim in this work is to clarify the essential ideas resulting from this research in order to further an understanding of pharaonic science as it relates to various states of being, to man's becoming and to his spiritual evolution. We have endeavoured to show the structure of this science in a synthesis that would conform to reality, but this was possible only after having carefully studied each of the elements. This difficult subject should appear at this point in the programme of Her Bak. Before undertaking deeper study of the 7 days of Ba and Ka, however, it is necessary to know the entire work. The 7 days in themselves form a self-contained entity, a chronicle of quickening life, of animation. The problems that are dealt with here are so condensed that they cannot be assimilated by a superficial reading. It should be possible, however, with the details given and by following the method indicated, to familiarise oneself with this fundamental part of pharaonic teaching. Clearly, the basis of these essential facts can be nothing else but identical with that of all true traditions. Yet the pharaonic expression strikes us as the most precise and easiest for the Western mind to assimilate. It is precise due to the rigorously exact values of letters and signs, chosen in each case to define the particular meaning attributed to a word. It is simple because it is devoid of literary images and sentimental interpretations, whose subjective character might degrade the reality of this metaphysics. The greatest difficulty exists in understanding the ka, there being no word in a conventional language for its translation. Ba is easier to express by the word soul, understood as the animating breath of all that lives, but for ka it is preferable to adhere to the pharaonic glyph, keeping its different meanings in mind. Any translation would only be approximate and would fail to express the philosophical meaning offered by the composition of this term. The word ka alone can reveal the diverse aspects it originally included, aspects which the nuances of its hieroglyphic inscription differentiate, yet without creating the idea of multiplicity in its essence. The number of pharaonic transliterations from the glyph used with any frequency in these 7 chapters is quite limited, so that the effort can be made to remember them. This will facilitate the penetration of this mode of thought. Knowing the difficulties created by the complexity of the subject, we strongly suggest that the reader observe the following recommendation. First, an attentive reading of the 7 days of Ba and Ka in the given order, without lingering on difficulties. Then, an individual study of each of the days, alternating each with the 7th. The first with the 7th, the second with the 7th, and so on, because the 7th is the synthesis and the key which makes it possible to review each one of the others with profit. Summary of the 7 chapters of Ba and Ka. First day. Elementary ideas concerning Ak, Ba, Ka, the origins of, quote, becoming, unquote. Second day. The 4 principial letters N, H, S, M. Essential roots that derive from them, the, quote, synthesis of principles, unquote. The source of the Kas, the 2 Ma'ats, the, quote, hierarchy of the netters, unquote, compared to the, quote, synthesis of principles, unquote. Third day, Ka and the skin mezka, the, quote, vases, unquote, of the body Khat. The human unity, Wa, how unity becomes, quote, diversity, unquote. The nature of the Ka and of the Kas, the netter principles in man. The 4th day, the name, the I, nek, inek, the cord, the will to live, iku, the 7 inevitable powers, the Kas and the Hemsuits. Consciousness, its elements, forms and degrees of consciousness, centres of inscription, responsibility, shadow, kabit, various kinds of memory, the, quote, devouress, unquote, amit, the weighing scene, the two ma'ats, the two, quote, thirsts, unquote, ab and tek, personal destiny, chai, envelopes and skins, solar heart and lunar heart, and the, quote, nut, unquote, of man, or newt. Sixth day, the various, quote, places, unquote, or states of being and duat. Newt, quote, scale, unquote, of man. Reincarnation. Kaibit, Ma Keru, Meskent, and Renan Nutet. The Sa and Sa, I'm not sure how that first one's pronounced, Orion, the paths of the west and of the east. The seventh day, the Djet, the subtle, indestructible body, formation of the human egg, role of Meskent and Renenutet, connection of all these elements, complete explanation of the Ka, the Osirian path, the Horian path of redemption.